we continue on our quest to understand different aspects of freedom from ideologies and being constrained, put in a box by a given thought system, whether or not it's economic, philosophic, religious, therapeutic, it doesn't make any difference. We want to flee fundamentalism. So I'm going to give three aspects today that show are beyond, that show how a person can go beyond being in a box. And the first one is they have to master solitude. Across my half century of doing psychotherapy, I kept discovering that people had a fear of abandonment. The abandonment fear was the foundation of the various adaptations that I saw in my office. And so one of the things I had to do in getting my clients beyond the fear of abandonment, whether or not it was in a marriage or whether or not it was a childhood fear for a younger person, or whatever the issue was. Perhaps a husband had taken off or a wife had taken off and the person was in deep despair. They felt abandoned. So the sequence I came up with, because it shows progression and I wanted people to know that there was hope. Abandonment goes to a feeling of loneliness, which goes to a feeling of aloneness, which finally leads to solitude. And that sequence was very important to people. And I would explain that solitude allows creativity. It allows us to breathe into our own identity. And it allows us to be free of shoulds, free of adjustments in society, free of talking with people that make different demands on us in terms of thinking. But in solitude, we have the privacy to build up our identities. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. A second sign of being post-ideological and living in the freedom of your life is to realize about the importance of gratitude. In narcissism, when you're in the box, you don't think of how much others have given to you. But when you finally break through, you realize that everything in life is a gift. One of my pains in dealing with people is I would find many who would hate their mother, and I just thought that was not good. It's okay for a short little phase of a time when you're in late adolescence and you're developing your identity separate from your family. But an overall dislike of the mother, or as some of my clients would say, I hate my mother, I think is a very bad mistake, because it does not recognize, and I would say this to my clients, that you were given life by your mother, you were given half of your genes by your mother, you were taken care of by your mother when you were a baby, you didn't feed yourself, you didn't change your diaper, you didn't keep you warm, you didn't give you shelter, you didn't have somebody watching over your health and taking you to the doctor for shots and for earaches and different little allergies that you develop as a child, chicken pox, mumps, whatever. Your mother took care of you in your most dependent years. So if it was a little phasal thing, it didn't bother me. But I knew that it was bad for my clients to hate their mothers over a long period of time. And the part of the lesson here is that they have been receiving gifts since they were a baby. They got the gift of life. They didn't decide on their genes. They didn't decide on a lot of their care. They didn't feed themselves. They didn't go to a refrigerator and get milk. They didn't make their formula. Life is a gift. And so I kept explaining this over a course of a therapy so that people would know they got an education, which was a gift. They got their clothes as they grew up as a gift. They had care, which was a gift, whether or not it was a mother or a grandmother or a grandfather or a father. There was a lot of care and a lot of gifts. So the second thing that I want to emphasize as a quality of being for a free human being is gratitude. Everything is a gift. I figured that out one time, that people didn't have to smile at me. A waitress or a waiter didn't have to be particularly nice. They could just be very analytical, say, yes sir, what is it you want to be served? And I could have given my formula, my menu, my order on the menu, and I could have explained things exactly the way I wanted them cooked. But they didn't have to be nice to me. I was not going to tip more because I know what phoniness is. And if somebody was in phony nice, well, I didn't really give them a great tip or whatever. But I began to realize that wherever I was, it's a gift that people are giving you. Whether or not they smile at you on the street or nice and hold the door so that you get it, everything is a gift. So it's appropriate to be grateful and to say thank you. My wife and I live that way. For any little thing the other does, we know it's a gift. We're committed to each other. She doesn't have to prove herself in any way. I don't have to prove myself. But everything we do is a gift. So gratitude is the second major quality of a free person that's stepped away from narcissism, thinking that people owe it to you. They don't. There's a third sign of freedom that I want to point out, and that is choosing your attitude in life. I don't mean half full or half empty. I don't mean positive or negative. I mean realizing and inevitably choosing the good, knowing what is right for others and for yourself, and having an attitude that is positive. And here I think about Arthur Miller, the great playwright of the 20th century. Arthur Miller wrote marvelous plays that have been seen throughout the country and the world. And he married Marilyn Monroe at times. Marilyn Monroe, in her social self, was seductive and laughing and smiling, and actually had a come hither, as my mother called it, kind of look about her. She would continually show her legs, her body, her breasts, the movement. She was a very seductive, is the best word I can come up with, person in public. But in private, she would turn on the little girl who had been relatively abandoned as a child, and one of her adaptations was to be seductive, and it was really led to success in terms of the movies. And I imagine in most car repair shops around the country there were pictures of Marilyn, and she was, you know, of her dress blowing up or her showing her figure in a bikini or whatever, because she was very graceful in public. But Arthur Miller got to know her in private because he married her, and it was hell. It was hell on earth to live with this woman. I imagine they had great sex, but then there was the hell of living with her in private, where she revealed all the negative stuff from her childhood. Arthur Miller wrote a play about living with Marilyn. although he didn't identify it as her, but everybody knew that he was talking about living with her and showing her temper tantrums and her irrationality in private. But he said a beautiful thing in this play, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but he said, in the midst of winter, the winter of his soul, whenever he woke up in the morning, he woke up with a feeling of eternal spring and summer and autumn, because he had the attitude of really seeking the best in life and celebrating it and living it. So in this lecture I've given you 3 tudes, T-U-D-E-S, solitude, gratitude, attitude. And I guarantee that it beats the servitude you get with a poisonous ideology.